Tonight, we are in Tel Aviv, a city and region suddenly thrust into chaos, and the war is now spreading. Strikes expand, the death toll rises with a warning the fighting could continue for weeks.
Whatever the time is, it's okay, whatever it takes.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless.
The American messaging mixed, the objectives unclear.
He has no strategy, he has no end game.
And the impact on oil, with a key shipping corridor effectively shut down.
Canada's Prime Minister signs new deals with India worth billions. A dramatic reset of relations with plans for a free trade deal by year's end. And BC announces it's ending time changes. It'll be daylight saving year-round.
Thank you.
I don't like switching back and forth.
Why the province is creating its own time zone.
From CBC News, this is The National with Erica Johnson and Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault in Tel Aviv.
Thanks for joining us. We're here in Israel. Tonight, the United States is urging its citizens to leave this country and more than a dozen others in the region immediately. 3 days into this war, there seems to be no way to contain the counterattacks, the consequences, or the chaos. 1/5 of the world's oil supply now choked off as Iran threatens to set any ship transiting the vital Strait of Hormuz ablaze. 3 U.S. fighter jets shot out of the sky. The death toll in Iran, Israel, Lebanon, and among U.S. service members is rising. The Trump administration's justifications for the war shifting. While no ground forces are involved so far, this has already spread further than any previous Gulf war. Thousands of strikes from the U.S. and Israel hitting targets in Iran and in Lebanon. Iranian attacks on Israel, the 6 Persian Gulf states and bases in Iraq, Syria, Cyprus. The war involving a dozen countries now. Donald Trump and administration officials are justifying American action, saying striking now was necessary to eliminate threats posed by Iran. But the specifics are murky, as are the objectives. But as Paul Hunter explains, one thing that is very clear, this war could intensify and could last for weeks.
With the continuing U.S. assault on Iran both fierce and relentless, the U.S. president on why Iran needed to be attacked now.
An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people.
And as senior advisors sat among those listening in, Donald Trump said Iran ignored warnings against trying to rebuild its nuclear program after the U.S. attacked it last year. And so now, this. As for how long Trump expects the war will last, a hint that his best guess is already growing.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless.
But even as Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth downplayed those who say it could last years, he forcefully laid out his view of what now lies ahead.
No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time.
Meanwhile, video from Kuwait of what appears to be a U.S. fighter jet falling from the sky. The U.S. confirming 3 of its jets were inadvertently fired upon by Kuwaiti air defenses. The U.S. crews parachuting to safety. This a day after an Iranian strike in Kuwait left at least 6 U.S. troops dead.
As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be.
Senior Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer slamming Trump for all of it.
This is Trump's war. This is a war of choice. He has no strategy. He has no end game.
On that, Trump advisors spent the day on Capitol Hill briefing both parties on the assault, with word at the end of the day, the war is in fact just getting started.
The hardest hits are yet to come from the U.S. military. The next phase will be even more punishing on Iran than it is right now.
And on the question, does he anticipate the need for troops on the ground in Iran, said Rubio he does not. But he said the president has that option and the president does not rule it out, Adrian.
And Paul, tonight there are some new warnings from the U.S. State Department.
Yeah, that's right. State Department calling on Americans throughout the Middle East to immediately depart, listing more than a dozen countries, Iran and Israel, of course, if possible, but also Lebanon, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, the list goes on. In all of those countries, people, Americans, urged to leave for their own safety now. Adrian.
All right, that is Paul Hunter reporting from Washington. Saudi Arabia says the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh has been attacked by 2 drones tonight, causing a fire. Police have closed a main road leading to the embassy. So it doesn't appear anyone was hurt. Saudi's defense ministry said there was minor damage to the building, but Donald Trump reportedly told News Nation the public will find out soon what U.S. retaliation will be to that attack on the embassy and over the deaths of U.S. military members. In Iran, the Red Crescent is reporting more than 500 people have been killed in that country. And in Lebanon, as of right now, the death toll is more than 50. Margaret Evans shows us a war that is moving fast and expanding.
With each passing day in this conflict, the proverbial fog of war expands. Here, Israeli airstrikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon after the militant Shia group launched revenge attacks against Israel over the death of Iran's supreme leader. Local officials say the strikes in Lebanon have already killed dozens. Hundreds of Lebanese have fled the south, and the Israeli military is calling up reservists. We have mobilized close to 100,000, said Brigadier General Effie Defrin. Dozens of battalions to defend the northern border. But the epicenter of this conflict remains in Iran. Israel and the United States continuing the heavy airstrikes they say will help put an end to a corrupt and evil regime. Iran's Red Crescent says more than 500 people have been killed so far, many civilians reportedly among the dead. Some Iranians inside the country say those outside are too quick to celebrate freedom from a religious dictatorship that is far from being delivered. I'm surprised by some Iranians abroad. The writer Mariam Manuchehi posted on social media. Yes, we're afraid of the mullahs, but we're also afraid of bombs. Fear is not restricted to Iran or to Israel, where Iranian missiles continue to slip through defenses. Forewarned by air raid sirens, this strike in the desert city of Beersheba. Iran's targeting of Middle Eastern countries hosting U.S. military bases is amplifying fears the war will spread. Here in Amman, the sound of Jordanian warplanes patrolling the skies is a near constant. 24-year-old Salman Abu Rezek says Iran's actions make no sense.
They bomb literally the region. Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan as well. Why?
One theory, Adrian, is that Iran was hoping that the pain those countries are feeling now might encourage them to lobby Washington for a quicker end to the war.
Yeah, that's interesting. But if that's the goal, Margaret, it's not clear that it's working yet.
Yeah, Adrian, it seems to actually just be making them angrier. I mean, if you remember, those countries, the Gulf countries in particular, really lobbied Donald Trump not to go to war with Iran in the first place. Now they're finding themselves under attack by Iran. And in some cases, not just military targets being hit, but also civilian and commercial targets.
All right, thank you. That is Margaret Evans in Amman, Jordan tonight. Among those commercial targets, Iran has now directly attacked oil and gas infrastructure in the Persian Gulf and says it is taking aim at one of the world's most critical tanker lanes. Nisha Patel on how this escalation is hitting global energy markets.
Iran's drones and missiles may have limited range, but now global impact, damaging critical energy infrastructure in the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia's largest oil refinery at Ras Tanura shut down. At a massive liquefied natural gas plant in Qatar, production stalled.
Iran thinks that is the only strategy that it can put enough pressure on Trump, particularly, to change the course of the action.
Now Iran's Revolutionary Guards say they've closed the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to set fire to any ship trying to pass. About a fifth of the world's oil and natural gas goes through this waterway. At least 3 tankers have already been damaged in attacks here. Insurers are withdrawing coverage. Dozens of tankers are stopped on either side of the strait, unwilling to risk passage.
Obviously, right now, Iran reacting to a lot of the U.S. strikes in a very unpredictable way, and that is part of the risk assessment that we're seeing show up in the price of oil.
The concerns this conflict will disrupt energy supplies drove oil prices higher. The global benchmark Brent crude up more than 7%.
If we take the assumption that flows from the Gulf stop for 5 weeks, then I think we have to be prepared for significantly higher oil prices.
Oil prices last crossed $100 a barrel almost 4 years ago during Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Experts say to reach that level again would take serious escalation.
I think the market believes that there is a significant inventory buffer and that we're not going to get those very disruptive scenarios for now.
But the longer this war lasts, the more prices could rise, including at the gas pump. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's talk about some of the travel disruptions here. Air Canada has canceled flights to and from Israel and Dubai until March 22nd as a wide corridor of airspace in the Middle East remains closed from the escalating violence. So that has impacted travelers and airports all over the world. The Dubai International Airport was quiet Monday as a small number of flights resumed after Iran targeted several major travel hubs in the region. So Canadian officials say they are pushing for a diplomatic solution to this crisis, but they have also expressed support for U.S. actions. And as Olivia Stefanovich explains, this is getting pushback inside Canada for the government's position.
Canada is trying to walk a fine line when it comes to the attacks by the U.S. and Israel on Iran.
We share the concern of the United States and many other countries relating to Iranian nuclear proliferation.
Supporting that objective while also pushing for peace.
We prefer a diplomatic solution.
Global Affairs Canada says there are more than 85,000 Canadians and permanent residents registered in the Middle East, including nearly 3,000 in Iran itself. And Ottawa's position on the conflict now engulfing them has plenty of critics, including one Liberal MP.
Canada cannot endorse the unilateral and illegal use of military force, the killing of civilians.
A concern echoed by the NDP.
We don't think Canada should be endorsing illegal wars of aggression by the Trump administration, which has repeatedly, by the way, threatened our own sovereignty.
But not everyone thinks Canada needs to show more restraint, pushing instead for Ottawa to get more involved.
Canadian government can join U.S. forces to help Iranians to overthrow the regime and bring back prosperity, freedom, and democracy to the country.
But Canada's former ambassador to the United Nations warns that could come at significant cost.
I'd love to see the regime changed in Iran, but I don't think we should be holding out an objective that is going to be incredibly difficult to achieve without an extraordinary loss of life.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister is urging her G7 and Middle East counterparts to try to bring all parties back to the negotiating table. But she says not everyone thinks a diplomatic solution is even possible right now. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
We'll have more from Tel Aviv in just a little bit, including how the killing of Iran's supreme leader went down and the ripple effect of Tehran's response right across the globe. But for now, let's head back to Erica in Vancouver with today's other top stories.
Thanks, Adrian. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Australia tonight, the next stop on his tour of Indo-Pacific countries as he looks to strengthen trade partnerships. It comes on the heels of his visit to New Delhi, where he and Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a series of new agreements worth billions of dollars. This is the latest move in a new, warmer era of relations between the two countries. But as Catherine Cullen shows us, it's happening as concern lingers about allegations of India fueling violence in this country.
A display of friendship between leaders after years of tension and accusations between the two countries.
There has been more engagement between the Canadian and Indian governments in the last year than there has been in more than 2 decades combined.
From our very first meeting itself, there has been a new energy, mutual trust, and a positivity in our relations, said the Indian Prime Minister. Mark Carney and Narendra Modi announced a host of agreements for more cooperation on university research, AI, space, a partnership on energy, including gas and renewables.
Tremendous momentum. The tone gets set at the top. There's a lot of energy in the room, but the thing that India most needs is energy.
And part of this trip is the announcement Saskatchewan's Cameco will provide $2.6 billion of uranium to help India grow its nuclear power.
Good steps taken today, material steps taken today that benefit both countries.
Formal trade negotiations will also get underway with hopes of a deal this year. And the two countries agreed to further work together on defense, security, and law and order. Modi also accepted an invitation to visit Canada. It comes less than 3 years after Canada accused India's government of being involved in the assassination of a Sikh activist in BC, as well as a wave of extortion and violence the next year. Last week, a senior Canadian official told reporters the violence fueled by the Indian state had stopped. It prompted backlash from some in the Sikh community. Today, the Foreign Affairs Minister seemed to say the official got it wrong.
The words of the senior official are not words that I personally would use.
Carney's meetings with Modi went on for more than 2 hours. The Prime Minister's office says that was longer than planned, and Carney ran out of time to take questions from journalists. It means the Prime Minister left India, heading on to Australia, without ever weighing in himself on whether the Indian government is still targeting some Canadians. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, New Delhi.
The African Nova Scotian community is pushing back against a series of budget cuts in the province's latest budget. As Kayla Hounsell shows, they let the Premier know exactly how they felt in a very public fashion.
Nova Scotia's Premier took the stage at a gala meant to celebrate African heritage, just 5 days after his government announced cuts to programs that would directly affect the community.
As a government, we remain committed to supporting an increase in education.
Hundreds stood, raising their fists in the Black Power salute. This local DJ was there.
I kind of figured that would happen. I mean, how would it not? With the cuts and all of that, it's still fresh.
Leadership means having discipline.
Tim Houston's Progressive Conservatives tabled a budget last week with a $1.2 billion deficit and $130 million in cuts to grants across a variety of government departments.
If adjustments are needed, we will listen.
African Nova Scotians say they're losing summer programs for youth, health programs, and scholarships. Ryan Summers also teaches at the Nova Scotia Community College.
Some of the bursaries and scholarships and stuff for them to not be funded anymore. I mean, wow, some people are going to lose their opportunity to even take post-secondary education.
While in Toronto for a mining conference, Houston was asked about the reception he received at the gala.
It's important that people have a mechanism to respond. We'll listen to that and we'll try to work with people.
Houston was re-elected to a second term in 2024 with a super majority, which means he holds 2/3 of the seats in the legislature. The official opposition NDP says he decided the cuts without consultation.
There are always going to be some types of frustrations because these are things that they had no idea was coming.
African Nova Scotians say the gala was meant to celebrate their culture and accomplishments, but that includes activism. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
There's confirmation tonight. A deadly bus crash yesterday in the Dominican Republic involved Canadians. The bus crashed while transferring passengers from a Sunwing flight to their hotel, about 100 kilometers west of Punta Cana. According to a statement from WestJet, which owns Sunwing, there were casualties. Local media there say 2 foreign nationals died and at least 19 others were injured. The Canadian Embassy says it's providing consular assistance. BC has become the first province to abandon seasonal time changes in more than 50 years.
And we are finally here, probably to the great relief of most British Columbians.
Why now and at what cost? A StubHub sale goes sideways, leaving the seller out thousands.
They absolve themselves of any responsibility for anything. The text is quite amazing.
Go public on why the fine print could cost you. And design via chainsaw.
I did maybe 50 ice sculpture this year.
We're back in 2. A big change is coming to BC. Like most Canadians, people here will spring forward this Sunday, but that will be the last time. As Caroline Bargout explains, the province has announced it's making the twice-yearly time changes a thing of the past.
This weekend, British Columbians will spring forward for the last time ever. The province announcing it's adopting daylight saving time year-round.
This has been one of the longest debated and considered decisions perhaps in the history of British Columbia, and we are finally here, probably to the great relief of most British Columbians.
When fall arrives, residents won't turn back the clock, and Vancouverites aren't mad at that.
Thank you.
I'm a fan. I don't like switching back and forth. The flip-flop, it's not my favorite.
Every province other than Saskatchewan changes time. BC said it's making the move to give residents more daylight in the winter and to reduce disruptions for shift workers and families with young children.
It creates all kinds of problems. Kids get up at the same time even though the clock's changed. Dogs get up at the same time even though the clock's changed. Parents lose sleep, kids lose sleep. So what we see is more car accidents and people not feeling well.
So what will that look like? On the darkest day of the year, the sun won't rise here in Vancouver until 9:05, but we'll get an extra hour of daylight in the evening, sunset around 5:15. The change means BC will be aligned with the Yukon year-round. In the winter, the clocks will match those in Alberta and other regions on Mountain Time. And in the summer, it'll align with California, Washington, and Oregon. And all of it could cause some growing pains.
There are some places that will be more affected than others, airlines in particular, because they cross time zones and they need to adjust their flight plans to accommodate that.
The changes put BC's largest cities in sync with smaller communities, mainly in the northeastern part of the province, as they already observe Mountain Time. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Vancouver.
Iran now says it will set ships on fire if they enter the Strait of Hormuz, an escalation with massive consequences.
It has never been conceivable that Iran would do this without its very survival being threatened.
Oil prices projected to soar, the risk of steep inflation. What's at stake if the strait stays shut? And detailing the complex mission that took out Iran's supreme leader.
This operation was highly classified so that at each hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next.
An Ontario man found himself out thousands of dollars after tickets he sold on StubHub suddenly disappeared from the site. Rosa Marcatelli of CBC's Go Public explains how more people could find themselves in a similar situation and what their rights are.
Here come the lights!
Longtime Formula One fan Paul Mann bought 9 three-day passes to last year's Grand Prix in Montreal. But when his wife broke her leg skiing and his group trip fell apart, he listed 7 of them on StubHub, expecting a smooth sail.
It seemed like the best choice and honestly the safest choice.
He followed StubHub's instructions and uploaded the digital tickets. They sold, then just disappeared off the site. The company called it a glitch and promised a fix. It never came. Instead, man was out more than $6,000 in lost sales. And making matters worse, StubHub piled on another $3,200 in penalties. StubHub later blamed Grand Prix race organizers, saying their tickets are not transferable, and that's what caused man's problems.
It's really surprising to me that something that should be simple and that StubHub claims is a very simple and safe process has turned out to be unreliable.
Go Public asked an expert on digital platforms to review StubHub's user agreement.
Basically, they absolve themselves of any responsibility for anything. The text is quite amazing.
Despite all of this, StubHub continues to sell non-transferable tickets, saying the restrictions are unfair to consumers. Grand Prix de Canada organizers disagree, though. They say the reseller isn't authorized to do that and warn some tickets might be canceled. Bottom line here, buyer and sellers, beware. After Go Public contacted StubHub, it gave Paul Mann his money. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for our team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Oil and LNG tankers are now stranded around the Strait of Hormuz as Iran warns them not to pass through.
Around 20% of the international oil trade that goes through these straits.
Why the move is such a gamble for Iran and why it is sending economic shockwaves around the world. But first.
Khamenei was part of those who were eliminated in the first minute of the operation.
A look at the airstrikes that killed Iran's supreme leader, how U.S. and Israeli forces knew precisely where and when to hit. The real-time intelligence behind Operation Epic Fury. U.S. officials have called it one of the largest and most complex military offensives in history. Andrew Chang, host of About That, shows us how it went down.
Of all the bombs dropped in Iran, the ones that fell in the capital at this compound may have been the most consequential.
We've heard from both the Israeli Prime Minister and the U.S. President that the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, has been killed. The Iranians are denying that and saying that he's still the head of the regime.
This is a hospital. This is a mosque. And for decades, this has been the nerve center of a nation. It was the official residence and principal workplace of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader. Now, it's gutted and flattened.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in a joint military operation launched by the U.S. and Israel on Saturday.
Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
The operation to assassinate Iran's most powerful religious and political figure required a level of surveillance, tracking, and intelligence gathering that relatively few countries are capable of. I'll give you a sense of what that looks like.
Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen.
Operation Epic Fury is a joint U.S.-Israeli strike on more than 1,000 targets across Iran.
The most lethal, most complex, and most precise aerial operation in history.
The goal, to cripple Iran's defenses, its anti-air capability, and the infrastructure of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's the primary branch of Iran's armed forces.
The U.S. military said it had destroyed the headquarters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
But the highest profile target was the so-called House of Leadership in the heart of Tehran. This is the Ayatollah's home.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is more than just a symbol. He is in many ways the Iranian head of state. He's the source of the real power in Iran.
Every fundamental decision about the country's direction was his. He had sole ultimate authority on the economy, on military issues, on politics. He was the final arbiter.
But what U.S. and Israeli forces would have known long before planning to strike the leadership compound of the Ayatollah was that there was never any guarantee Ali Khamenei would be there. According to the New York Times, the timing of the strike was changed in the run-up because new intel would place Khamenei and the country's most senior defense officials at that site at a very specific time. In a post online, Trump divulged only that Khamenei was unable to avoid our intelligence and highly sophisticated tracking systems, which likely refers to at least two things: intel from people, covert agents, informants, local networks, but also from technology. Signals intelligence might involve intercepted communication, cell phones, radio traffic, that sort of thing. But there's also imagery intelligence, high-resolution satellite photos. There's no X-ray vision here. You can't see inside an underground bunker or even an above-ground building like you can in the movies. But by comparing images over time and establishing what are called patterns of life, when specific events happen, where do people go? What meetings take place? Which vehicles are where? Can we do more than just locate and monitor in real time what's happening on the ground, but actually even predict the specific places where specific people will be?
So it's probably a combination of human intelligence on the ground, potentially through Israeli assets, as well as signals intelligence, and the ability of the United States to use over the horizon, and in this case, local assets to target pretty much anywhere on the planet that it wants to hit.
So this attack doesn't take place in the middle of the night, as one might expect. It takes place mid-morning, when U.S. intelligence believes Iran's senior leadership will be here, and as U.S. Cyber Command begins to obscure the attack, electronic warfare.
The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond.
So at around 6 a.m., Israeli fighter jets reportedly take off from their bases. They're armed with long-range, highly accurate munitions. Just over 2 hours after takeoff, so at around 9:40 a.m. Tehran time, which is an hour and a half ahead of Israel time, those long-range missiles hit their target.
Explosions could be heard in Tehran earlier. Smoke was seen billowing throughout the capital city there.
Many of them aimed at the compound that has been the residence for the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei.
It's also hard to keep accurate information on exactly where the strikes have hit. We do know that more than 24 provinces have been affected in the country.
Iranian officials say that one strike hit a girls' school in Iran, killing more than 100.
At first, there were only suspicions of just which links in the chain of command were destroyed. Those would give way to denials. Iran's foreign minister would tell NBC News, "As far as I know, the Ayatollah remains in good health." In the early hours, fake AI-generated images would hint at a different story. Now, to be clear, this isn't real. But Donald Trump himself would eventually break the news, posting online, "Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead." Iran itself would eventually confirm, declaring a 40-day period of mourning, and Iranian state TV would mourn the loss as well.
حضرت آیت الله العظما سید علی حسینی خامنه‌ای در راه سربلندی حرم جمهوری اسلامی ایران شهد گوارای شهادت را نوشیدند و به ملکوت اعلی پیوستند.
In the Western world, Iran has long been seen as a threat. One of the more extreme examples of that, this headline from the New York Post. It and other conservative voices have applauded the president's order to kill Iran's leader in his own country.
I want to thank President Trump for having the guts to do this.
President Trump's decision to launch this decisive action against Iran is the single most important decision of his presidency.
The mothership of terrorism is sinking. The captain is dead.
And to varying degrees, traditional allies of the United States are supporting it, even in Britain's case, lending help to attack Iranian missile sites.
The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request.
Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security.
But gauging reaction in Iran itself is more difficult because of how closed to the outside world it is. The most we can say is that there is mourning Because remember, many Iranians may hardly remember a time before Ali Khamenei. He's been ruling Iran for nearly 40 years. He was a key figure in the overthrow of the monarchy, the Iranian Revolution, and that revolution was also an Islamic revolution. For Shia Muslims, Khamenei is the highest order guardian of the country's religious identity and a fierce defender of its national integrity.
For many Shia Muslims who revere the supreme leader, who revered Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, his death is a tragedy, and they mourn it, just like they would for a major religious figure.
But in Iran, there is also celebration. Because this is, at the same time, a brutal autocratic regime. For many, the Ayatollah's death brings relief.
For many Iranians, he is fundamentally emblematic of everything that is wrong with the regime and the opposite of what kind of life that many of them want.
Protests against his rule, many thousands strong, were violently put down, many thousands killed. Morality laws are strict and strictly enforced. Dissidents not tolerated, women persecuted, the economy in shambles. Many of the people celebrating Khamenei's death see him as the architect of their repression.
The reactions are very complicated and mixed. There are some people who are glad he's gone. There are others who mourn his passing. It's quite one thing to have a domestic revolution that unseats a dictator that's unpopular. It's another thing to have that revolution brought to you courtesy of the United States, which has long been viewed as an enemy by many people in Iran over decades.
I am Iranian and American. Both of my countries are at war with one another. And what I fear the most here is that even in cases where the U.S. went into these wars with seemingly well-intentions and with a plan and with a policy process and with a strategy for the day after, it ended in grief. In this case, the U.S. has entered into this war based on wishful thinking, and it hasn't really thought through the consequences. So I'm very much afraid that this could end in grief.
The question now, though, is after the death of Iran's supreme leader, what or whom takes his place?
Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it.
Neither Trump's Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, nor even Donald Trump himself have offered any indication that there is any plan at all to install a new leader or otherwise replace the regime of Ali Khamenei. Instead, Trump has issued a threat.
I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty.
He's also issued a message direct to the people of Iran.
I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you.
What that means for the time being is that the joint American-Israeli attack on the Iranian regime continues. That, the president seems to suggest, is America's part. The rest, he says, to the citizens caught in the crossfire.
The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. And God bless the United States of America.
Coming up, Iran warns oil and LNG tankers not to pass through the Strait of Hormuz as it escalates retaliation against attacks from the U.S. and Israel.
The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important choke points in the global economy.
What it all might mean for global oil supply and prices next. The Strait of Hormuz now a major flashpoint in an escalating conflict as oil and LNG tankers are left stranded.
I think this is precisely the strategy that Iran thinks that is the only strategy that it can put enough pressure on Trump.
Lindsay Duncombe looks at this vital shipping choke point and why using it as leverage could be a risky move for Iran.
What happens here in the Strait of Hormuz could shake markets, rattle economies, and potentially determine how long this war goes on. This is the fear. An oil tanker apparently hit by a drone off the coast of Oman. It's unclear who launched it. But attacks or threats of attacks could give Iran leverage in the face of American and Israeli bombs.
Says an oil tanker has been attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, injuring 4 crew.
This follows reports of 3 tankers attacked over the weekend in the Strait. It's tough to know what's going on. There's little official information. Right now, Iran is warning vessels do not pass.
Attention all ships from now on. All navigating through the Strait of Hormuz is forbidden.
20% of the world's daily oil production goes through the strait. Now, those ships are stalled.
The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important choke points in the global economy.
The University of Ottawa's Thomas Junot has advised governments on the Middle East.
It is not clear at this point to what extent Iran is attacking purposely transit in the Strait of Hormuz, or if ships are simply refraining from transiting by themselves for fear of eventual attacks. The reality is probably a bit of both.
This is the area we're talking about, the mouth of the Persian Gulf. Oil from Iran, Iraq, and the Gulf states leaves here for international markets, mostly Asia.
The decision by Iran to close the Strait of Hormuz has always been seen as a very, very last resort. It has never been conceivable that Iran would do this without its very survival being threatened.
But with Trump calling for regime change, this now is an existential crisis for the Islamic Republic. Some oil can move through Saudi pipelines, but capacity is limited.
Again and again, the Iraqis have sunk the tankers carrying Iran's oil.
The last time there was prolonged fighting in the Strait was in the late 80s, the war between Iran and Iraq. A closure of the Strait could increase oil prices around the world, push up inflation, shock stock markets.
I think this is precisely the strategy that Iran thinks that is the only strategy that it can put enough pressure on Trump.
UK think tank Chatham House's Galip Day believes Iran is making a calculation that Trump is the only person who can end the war.
So that the impact of this will be more on international energy prices or on international economy might be another factor that will push Trump to rethink its action.
But closing the strait could hurt Iran too, not just because it needs to sell oil to make money. That's where China comes in. It relies on oil shipped through the strait, a relationship the Islamic Republic depends on.
Iran is buying some weapons from China. Iran is dependent on some diplomatic cover from China, notably at the UN Security Council. So if Iran really goes to the last resort of sustainably trying to close the Strait of Hormuz, it really has to balance that interest.
So what happens here will reverberate around the world. It's complicated, dangerous, and like so much else, uncertain.
We'll have more coverage from the Middle East, including right here in Tel Aviv throughout the week. But for now, let's head back to Erica in Vancouver.
Thanks, Adrienne. Coming up, a front lawn with a theme.
I did maybe 50 ice sculptures this year.
The Quebec man's creations, next in our moment. These are just some of the many ice sculptures Marc Néron crafted on his front lawn in Oka, Quebec. In all, he's made 50 this winter, all with a little help from the Ottawa River. Now, his icy creations make our moment.
I take the ice in the lake, I take my Jeep and my chainsaw, and I cut the ice and take all by myself with my arm. With my job of firefighter, I use chainsaw, but not enough for my fun. I start to do ice sculpting. I did maybe 50 ice sculpture this year. Everywhere in the city, I really enjoy to put the bigger EVS block of ice the highest I can. I don't want to do something too small because the sun comes too fast. One with the big O, it's 4,000 pounds. Take 2 days to sculpt. I really enjoy to do my stuff in front of my house. People come again just to see the next one, the next one. It's a lot of ice, but it was really fun.
Now, Mark says he is done carving for this season at least. His body can't take it. He's already carried 21,000 pounds of ice. And if Mark looks a little familiar to you, this is the third time he has made it to the moment. So he's sort of the moment king, if you will. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Erica Johnson in Vancouver. Take care.